Hello, namaste. My name is Timothy Halloran. I'm an astrologer from Savannah, Georgia. This is a weekly astrological forecast, and today is Tuesday, August 17th. And this may need to be yet another somewhat informal weekly forecast, as I'm pretty uncomfortable out here, really sweaty, and it's rained the last several days, and so I don't know if you can see, but there's a swarm of mosquitoes on me, even though I'm wearing bug spray. So I'm really uncomfortable. I'm going to try to make this direct and quick the best I can. Although we are certainly in the midst of this somewhat complicated and messy time where there's a lot of adjustment, there's a lot of change, and we're not totally through it yet, okay? So a lot of times I like to begin with the kind of weekly bit-by-bit aspects and then talk about some of the deeper underlying energy. Well, this week I'm actually going to talk mostly about the deeper underlying energy because I think that's what we can really sense these days. Now, we did have a new moon last Friday, and we called last week's video The Birth of a New Voice. And I do want to sort of put out the reminder that when we're, putting intention into a new moon, it's not immediate. We put intention into the new moon, and then we usually see that birth or that growth happen within the month, within the following moon cycle. So we have this next month to birth a new voice. We have this next new month that is really culminating and completing quite a few cycles that we've been in for years. So let's talk about this underlying energy. What have we been dealing with kind of from a more pulled back, big picture point of view? As I think a good amount of objectivity can really help us as we are kind of still dealing with these majorly personal signs. Yes, this is our last week of Leo season, the sun being in Leo. Leo's a very personal sign. That last week's new moon was all about finding our voice, which can come through contrast and comparison to other voices. We can see how we may not necessarily fit into the group, into the demographic, into the relationship. And really the first 3 weeks of Venus retrograde, the first couple weeks, whatever it was, that was when we saw Venus backing up towards the sun. This is when we see a lot of these major changes and readjustment happen. Now we're about halfway through this retrograde. We have about 3 weeks left. There's still 3 weeks where changes and readjustment can happen, particularly when Venus turns direct. I believe the second week, early Sunday of September. Yeah. And, this is another time where things can again change and we get back on course. Yes, we readjust. And so there's a lot of this readjustment that's going on, and we're still adjusting. We're still letting the pieces come together, okay? Now, a lot of the tension and the challenge that we've been dealing, especially this last month, because Leo is square to Scorpio. But we've had Saturn in Scorpio the last 2.5 years. And Saturn is finishing this 2.5-year transit next month. So we've got 6 months ago, there was an eclipse, a solar eclipse on the spring equinox, March 20th. We're completing that cycle next month. 2.5-year Saturn cycle we're completing next month. And now we have the new moon initiated last Friday, conjunct retrograde Venus. We will be completing that next month. Next month there is a solar eclipse in Virgo, around 20 degrees Virgo. That's going to be setting the stage for the next 6 months. So we are in the midst of these very large cycles, culminating, completing. We've talked about this Leo-Scorpio. They are naturally square in the zodiac. So part of the challenges that we've been dealing, particularly these last several weeks, has been my truth versus other people, my goals, my desires, and the potential interferences of others, the complications of others, the emotions, the karma. And this has been Saturn for the last 2.5 years, transiting Scorpio. We've been forced into our emotional insecurities, having to do with intimacy issues, sexual issues, power issues. And this is digging up and releasing so many insecurities. Yes, and we've been talking about this for years. And this is going to be completing, and this has been in the service of us taking back our power. We have a truth, we have a potency, we have powers unique to us. And we're understanding how to use that. We're understanding how to remove the blockages, the distractions, the cultural conditioning that keeps us from actualizing, accessing, and integrating our inherent power. So this has been Saturn, and this has been the Leo square to Saturn. Now we have Sun square to Saturn this week. So Leo season is completing with this Sun square to Saturn, this challenge, where we may feel the creative challenge, we may feel the sexual frustration, we may feel the physical lack. You know, sometimes we can feel with the Saturn square to Sun, you know, this is potential money issues, and like we don't feel like there's enough there. There can be a sense of lack, of not being able to quite make it there, and of frustration, okay? And this is the parts of, you know, the birthing process that we initiated last week, but we're carrying through this next month, as this whole next month, and we can really feel it right now. There is big stuff changing. There is this big readjustment as we shift from this Leo-Scorpio tension into Virgo, okay? Now Jupiter moved into Virgo last week, and we can already be feeling the Virgo energy starting to come in. We're starting to feel the greater drive to be more detail-oriented, to get ourselves a little bit more grounded, more practical, more capable of moving through our day as a functional human being. So the schedule, the health regimen, the systems, yes, Virgo rules energy systems. So we're starting to pay attention more to energy systems. Now on Sunday, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, the Sun does move into Virgo. And then we have Virgo season. And then like we said, September 20th, solar eclipse in Virgo, kicking off a 6-month focus on Virgo, and Jupiter's in Virgo for the next year. So there is this shifting that's going on, and really what I think it is these last several years has been a lot of internal work. And this has been majorly purging. You know, many people I know have been struggling since 2012. We had these Pluto-Uranus squares, we had Saturn and Scorpio. It's been digging up, it's been pushing through, it's been busting out. These are intense words. It's been an intense time. We've been removing the obstacles that have stopped us from accessing our inherent power as we give birth to our new individual self that is really who we are on a truer, deeper level. And now, as we are stepping into this newer, greater self over these next weeks, and we can feel the back and forth, I think, as well. This is part of this time, is we can taste the new, the freedom, the joy, the power, the capability. And it is so reinvigorating and reaffirming, and it brings new life into us. And then we go back into some of the challenges are still there. Some of the confrontations are still there. The stress is still there. And that's okay, because what's happening simultaneously is we're getting deeper into Virgo, and Virgo is going to be our teacher for the next year. Virgo is what is allowing us to step out of this Leo-Scorpio square and step into the future that's going to be more capable, more functional. And that's what we want. That's what I personally want. Yeah, this last week, these last months, this last year, I've personally gone through a struggle. A lot of us did get hit by the Uranus-Pluto square, and if we got hit by that, we got hit by the last solar eclipse that was aspecting that Uranus-Pluto square. There's been a lot of changes, and if you have been in a really intense time and you're exhausted and I just want to be done, the way you can help fill yourself up is sort of remember where you were a year, 2 years, 3 years ago. Because the intense periods is when the intense progress happens. And this does happen differently for different people. And that's something I wanted to point out too. Is that in these weekly reports, we're talking about the whole world, the collective transits. It does not affect everybody personally the same way. These are not transit readings. If we do want to see how this Venus retrograde is going to be affecting us, we will want to look to 10 to 18 degrees of the fixed signs. That is Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. That's where Venus is going to be stationing the next several weeks. Yeah, really the next month. We can look to 10 to 18 degrees of the fixed signs. That's where Venus is going to be affecting us. Now, if you are born around my age, and I know most of my viewers aren't around my age, but if you are, we're going to have Venus square to Pluto the next several weeks. So we continue transforming our values, readjusting as Venus is stationing and then moving direct. This is good stuff to know. Another thing that's good to know is where Saturn is, because Saturn's finishing up the last of the fixed sign, Scorpio, so we can really look to, 25 to 30 of the fixed signs and see where Saturn is affecting that. And then we can also look to 0 to 5 degrees of the mutable signs. That is Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces. And if you look to 0 to 5 degrees of those signs, that's where Saturn is going to be affecting us the most over the next several months. So there is a lot of change and transformation. It affects us differently. It affects us personally in different areas. But now we are kind of culminating this period that's been a lot of intense inner transformation. Busting through our creative sexual issues has been a lot of this last month in order to access our own divine willpower. And we're taking back this willpower. This is the birth of a new voice. And I've been using the word birth so much this last year, as this has really been a year of birth. And we're talking about the rest of 2015, really continuing into September and October, is this major push-off that's pushing us in a new direction, new ventures, with increased security. We've finished the old. And so this is kind of what's happening over these next couple months. All right, now let's see where we can take it from there, yes? So the moon's in Libra now, and the moon moves into Scorpio on Thursday. The sun squares Saturn on Saturday. So this weekend, this weekend is a time where we might be feeling some stuff, and we want to give ourselves flexibility, yes? We need to remember the positive, as we are still in the midst of change. It's not exactly you get instantly and immediately served everything on a silver platter. What we rather will probably be feeling is this anxiousness to be there, and we feel like we're so close. Yet there's still a few more things we are wrapping up, so we do need the patience, the flexibility. Yes, if money has disappeared, this could be Sun square to Saturn plus Venus retrograde, can sometimes make finances a little bit more difficult. We just need to be patient. If we can wait through into September period, and then Virgo is going to take over. Virgo is really all about being functional, being practical, being grounded. Now we can get stuff done. So this is the shift that is happening, but we are still in the midst of it. And Jupiter being in Virgo, being our teacher for the next year, is going to be introducing new health regimens, new diets, new schedules, new sleep schedules. It is going to help us to be able to acquire this greater security and confidence. And this confidence and security is really what is asking to be born out of us, to be able to carry us in this direction where things are more defined, a little bit more calm and stable is where we're going. And this should be a relief for many of us, yes? And once again, it affects us all differently. For example, I myself personally am not going to be finding stable ground for years. I'm just changing and changing and changing. It's all about us, our soul, and our soul's desires. But on a collective level, the collective soul, all of us on this earth, have desired to push forward at this time, in this direction, and we can really start to be more practical, get stuff done, and get stuff fixed going into the future as we resolve, as we culminate, as we complete some of the more complicated inner, feminine, dealing with power, dealing with emotions, dealing with other people, interferences, sharing. We can finally reach new ground in these areas in order to get that extra direction, yes? So we're still in the midst of Venus retrograde. We've also got Mercury conjunct asteroid Juno and opposing Chiron in Pisces this week. And I think this is a very good opportunity to communicate, particularly in our partnerships, in our relationships, with our intimate friendships. And there can be a lot of healing, I think, that can happen in these areas. As we start to talk more about details, and this is also what's happening, having Mercury in Virgo now, it's these little details start kind of filling in. Yes, it's like the sediment at the bottom starts to kind of bottom out and culminate and come together. And so we can start to talk about these things, these details. Why have we made these readjustments? Where do we feel the new opportunities are coming, the new vistas are coming? So it's a very exciting time. There is a lot of up and down, yes. And we can really move forward. I would suggest really finding the peace within us at this time. I think this is also a part of the Mercury Chiron, is that we can be our own doctors, we can meditate, we can reflect, and we need this too. I mean, this is kind of, I feel, the big gift that we are collectively being given at this time that is allowing us to go forward, is all of this work, all of this digging has really gotten us this inner strength and this inner almost objectivity. And I think Virgo as a sign does have a more objectivity than Leo can and Scorpio can. We can take things very personally and it gets very intense. And Virgo also can be very personal, but there is this more objectivity that is the simply focusing on what is happening as it happens. And I think that's the inner strength and inner maturity that I think many of us have been working on, is we've been diving into the personal, the subjective, the complicated. Oh, now it involves you and your past and your feelings and your past lovers and your past relationships, and it's messy and it's gooey and it's hard to stay afloat. And it's almost like what we need to be able to stay afloat is just to see things as they are, as they come, bit by bit in the moment, physically, yes? So let's give an outrageous example. Venus retrograde, you're breaking up with your girlfriend, it's messy, it's complicated, you're feeling all the feelings, you're purging all the insecurities, and let's just focus on packing up those boxes. Yeah, let's move one thing into the box. And that's an outrageous example, and I don't mean to come off negative, but it's illustrating, I think, the type of strength that we can harness now, which is let's focus on the physical. Let's focus on what's happening in the moment. And if we can do that, that gives us a little bit extra room to breathe, to be flexible. It gives us this objectivity that life will go on, yes? And if we can really harness this Virgo objectivity, this is really the intention that I can put things where I want to, I can build things the way I want to, then we can really start to see the creativity that's coming out of this Scorpio-Leo square. This has been going on the last month. We're going to come out of it the next month. And I think, coming out of a square, we can get this real push, yeah? A square is tense energy. We've been dealing with tense energy for quite a while, collectively. And now, collectively, we can start to see the payoff and the push forward. Yes, and this is not solving things on the level in which they are created. We do have to sort of rise out of the challenge, out of the square, out of the tension, but acquiring this extra strength, this inner strength. It's all about inner strength. Inner strength to not always take things personally, even when your name gets dropped, even when you get sucked into things. It doesn't always say about you. It sometimes says about others. It sometimes says something about something more mundane. It's not always personal, but the whole point is we're picking ourselves out of that, lifting ourselves out of the challenge, the strife. And once we do that, we can bring all of this creative juices with us forward. Well, I know who I am now. I may not be doing this, I might not be doing this. I could have been going through realizing who I am through a very difficult process of elimination. I could have been going through realizing who I am through trying whatever I'm not. And now I'm left empty-handed. And now that I'm empty-handed, who I am comes to me because I'm no longer trying to be what I'm not. I am simply accepting what I'm already am. So let's harness this Chiron Mercury and get really deep and heal ourselves, our mind, communicate in a way that we're talking about the details, we're talking about the changes, we're talking about the adjustments. And simultaneously, let's get ready to push into Virgo season. And then we really start chugging forward. Any challenges, any emotional stuff that comes off this weekend, let's see this as Leo square to Scorpio. This can bring up the sexual, money, power issues, but it is a challenge that we are almost completely risen out of. that we have harnessed this inner strength. And let's not let our mind and our emotions convince us that we have not gathered this inner strength. It speaks for itself. So let's really look within ourselves, and despite little tiny things, we know that there's been long-term, big deal things happening beneath the surface, and yeah, we're preparing to take yet another birth. Solar eclipse next month is birthing the next 6 months. Yeah. And you know, someone pointed out a couple weeks ago that I've been using the word underworld a lot, and I've also been using the word birth a lot this year. And I really think that the two do go together. It makes sense that we see these words together. You know, it's really not death and birth. There is only rebirth. Death and birth are the same. So the underworld descent. Venus is in her underworld. She's descending. That's where we go down. We confront. We release. We destroy. We let go. And then we rise back up, reborn, refreshened, feeling new life, feeling re-alivened in a way that we could previously never imagine. This is the rebirth process, and it is happening. So let's keep our chins up. Let's remember all the positive things that have happened, that we have gathered as we continue to, move through these little last mundane surface level triggers. That is really the final last bits of insecurities, of emotions and complications being moved out of the way to clear the space for our future, for our new direction, for our new truth, our new voice, and really what we love to do. So, that was a rant. I'm wishing all the best to you in the meantime. You can order a chart from me if you're looking for some insight into how these things are personally affecting you. We will see how these last several years has affected your personal chart, has caused individual growth, maturity, and the acquiring of your own inner truth and strength. So much love to you and your beloveds. Namaste.